The Red Wedding is one of the biggest turning points in all of Game of Thrones, which launched so many of our main characters in different directions. But what if it didn't happen? How would the future events play out?
Yeah, we're going to go into we're going to try to go down like a specific branch here because, dude, even when it comes to the Red Wedding in general, there's so many different ways that it could potentially not happen if you're basically, fanficking, kind of like we are. Like, does Robb find out about the Red Wedding beforehand? Does he notice it in the middle of it and then kind of turn it around? Or does Walder Frey just forget about it entirely? Like, oh, yeah, water under the bridge. I don't mind that you broke our oath. And then they don't go through with the actual thing. So what we're going to do is decide that maybe the most realistic or reasonable way is for Robb to be informed of it beforehand, because we know there's actually a lot of players involved in the betrayal of the Red Wedding anyway. Like, at very least, House Bolton, House Frey, and House Lannister. Like, that's 3 big players. Robb has a squire who is a Frey, Oliver Frey or Oliver Frey. It could be him that ends up leaking the information to Robb. It could be someone like Black Walder Frey, who's a book-only character, no, he's in the show, but he's not very prominent. Yeah. But in the book, he is the only guy that among House Frey that seems like he's actually trying to actively work his way up to become direct heir. Like, most people believe he has a hand in his father's death, his own father, and possibly his grandfather down the road. So it could be somebody like him that betrays in order to get in the good light. Either way, Edmure Tully would end up appointing another Frey as Lord of the Crossing because he's still married into the family too, and there's not going to be active tensions if Walder Frey and the whole conspiracy is thwarted right then. So we're going to go from there.
So we're just saying Robb learns about this, and now he has to punish people. So does he kill Walder Frey or not because of this? What does he do with the Frey house? I don't think he ends the line, right? He's not like, all right, I'm not going to spoil anything for House of the Dragon, but yeah, I was about to say there's a character that does something
right.
Very similar act.
I kind of jumped the gun a little bit earlier. I don't think that Walder Frey would die. I think that Robb would want to kill our sweet old innocent baby boy Walder. But, well, see, this is the thing, man. Depending on who betrays Walder to Robb, he could die in the aftermath. Like, for example, if it is Black Walder Frey, I think there's a very good chance that Walder would die in the confrontation because Black Walder wants to become Lord of the Crossing. So he definitely would kill Walder in order to get there, at least in my opinion. But if it's basically anybody else, Walder's probably not going to die in the confrontation. And I think Catelyn would be the one to kind of sway Robb away from executing Walder, because we talk about this a lot in our videos. Even though we don't like Catelyn and usually her reasoning I hate, Robb is the one that instigated this whole incident by breaking his oath. You could call Walder like an overreaction, his behavior overreacting.
Right.
But in the end, Robb did initiate this whole problem. So it's like, yeah, Catelyn's like, hey, Robb, maybe we could make good with this. Like, we kind of got him by the balls now. We're ready to give his sack a twist if we need to. We could just say, water under the bridge. Not to mention, if there's this tiny little bit of a delay in the Red Wedding not happening, Arya showed up now, so they could still hold up like that other aspect of the deal. So now you have Edmure Tully and Arya both marrying into the Freys, and the only one you're missing out on is Robb.
Yeah, do you think this is a better ending for Arya? She's now stuck as like some lord's wife and most likely a Frey wife now. It's like, ugh. I think she'd rather have her family die and go over to Braavos and have these secret abilities deep down inside. I think that's what she would really want, but too bad, Arya. It looks like you're going to get married to one of the Freys.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think her main quest, like in her solo campaign, probably wouldn't happen now unless everybody dies a different way, which could very well happen. We're going to talk about it here. Maybe it'll happen. And, maybe now, though, she's in Westeros, possible love affair, like cheating on her husband with hot pie, or maybe attempting to do... Dude, come on. She would go back to that inn, and she would just find him drowning in pee. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I could say the word, but
hot
just
pee.
Drowning
That's his
in
name.
Hot pee, man. All those maidens, they want to taste that cake so bad, that freshly baked cake.
Okay. All right. So Robb is able to prevent the Red Wedding from happening. And from there, he already had some orders going up from the She-Bear, the Mormont, and the Glover. They were supposed to head north and hook up with Howland Reed to go take Moat Cailin. And so I think that's Robb's first move after he establishes his reinforcements in River Run and the Twins. He goes up there, and he's heading north. That was the whole plan before the Red Wedding even happened was, hey, I have to head up north, retake my seat, Winterfell. Before I guess we get into that, what does he do with Roose Bolton? Because Roose is part of this. Does he...
I think he's in immediate execution. I don't think there's any hesitation.
No,
yeah, I mean, why would he?
My boy.
Listen, I like him, too. He's the true Warden of the North in my mind, dude. He gets the job done. Yeah. But... I mean, why would Robb keep him alive? Like, there's no reason. He's just like a straight-up traitor. He didn't even break any oaths to Roose. Like, that guy's dead.
Yeah, and I think depending on how, because I'm trying to really think the conversation that Catelyn and Robb have about Walder Frey, whether they just need to keep him alive to ensure that the Freys are loyal to them for the war, and maybe they just need him because maybe they don't trust Black Walder or whatever Frey they put into the twin situation. But
Yeah,
they need
whichever one.
They need those forces. So after that, they need to figure out a way to kind of get the Card Starks and the Boltons back on their side because they're heading north. I think they take Winterfell pretty easily. I don't think there's anything really standing in their way because it's just the nasty Greyjoy army that's up in the north.
Disgusting.
And the Boltons were able to quickly kind of get them out of there. And also the Greyjoy forces wanted to get out of there anyways.
Right, they did. They completely did. I see. This is the weird part to me. I mean, I think, yeah, for sure, you're right. They take Winterfell back no matter what. But what do you think, at least in the interim right here, what happens with the Frey army and the Tullys and everything? Do you think they hang down south in the Riverlands still, like as a kind of just in case the Lannisters try anything funny? Because remember, they still are dealing with the war on that front. Okay, I think so too. I think basically it's just the northern army that marches back up. I think they take Winterfell like lickety split. And when it comes to the Boltons, I don't know, like the Ramsay thing is kind of a loose cannon. Like there's two ways this could go, I think, and you tell me which one you like more. First of all, I think Theon dies no matter what. I think if Robb gets to Theon, he's dead. He's dead. There's no question. He might even get some like Casino Royale treatment or like some for the book readers, Helena and Alicent, Rhaenyra's plan for them according to Mushroom. You know what I'm saying? Before he ends up dying. So that happens for sure. But it could either be Robb killing him, like I said, or maybe Ramsay would like execute him if he hears about the whole thwarting of the Red Wedding prior, because then he could play like maybe a good guy sort of situation and then become, I don't know if he would become Lord of the Dreadfort. Maybe that's unrealistic. I don't remember what other relatives Roose Bolton has. I know he doesn't have any direct descendants or direct sons or whatever, but I think it's possible that the Boltons aren't just wiped out wholesale. Like maybe they could be seen as Roose acted on his own and Ramsay was exempt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe he's able to win some points over with Robb. I don't know if he legitimizes him. Maybe he looks at him. He's like, "Oh, it's just like my brother, Jon Snow. He's just a bastard." Yeah. I'm trying to remember in the books whether he's that kind of sly as he is in the show. In the show, he's able to kind of like be a little stinker bingus, he's acting like he's straight-laced, but behind the scenes, he's really like this maniacal killer and torturer, right? And I don't know if Robb buys it. Let's just put Ramsay there for right now. And
like as the Lord of the Dreadfort, you're saying?
Yeah, as Lord of the Dreadfort, Robb legitimizes him because he got Theon, and Robb really wants his revenge on Theon because he believes he killed his brothers. And Theon's going to say, like, "No, I swear I didn't kill your brothers." Like, of course you'd say that, idiot. Come here. And executes him. So
yeah, right.
So Robb's back up in Winterfell, and I think Catelyn goes with him. Catelyn was supposed to go to, I think, White Harbor. Where was she supposed to go after the Red Wedding? He was going to send her back up north. He's like, "Yeah, you're great, Mom, but I really don't need you down here." But wherever, I think she maybe stays with them, or maybe goes to the Errands again, maybe to try to reason.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. But I'm just wondering, because if Rickon and Bran are assumed dead or presumed dead, maybe Catelyn would want to go back up north. No, because if they think that it's a closed casket sort of situation, like these kids were burned, whatever, then yeah, maybe Catelyn would be able to move on and then go immediately, like you said, to the Vale and start negotiating with her crazy-ass sister, because that's kind of like a wild card in the whole war. You know what I mean? Like, whose side is she on, or is she going to even participate in the battle at all? She kind of needs to be won over by one side or the other, and this is probably a good time to do it, maybe, because I'm not sure if we're gonna see Littlefinger make the same moves later on now.
Yeah, I don't know either. But before we get into that part of it, Robb probably has to stay in Winterfell until, I guess Arya could be there, because there's always a Stark in Winterfell, right? That's the rule. So I don't know what he does that he somehow is able to keep a Stark there, whether it's his mom, which I don't know if she even counts as technically a Stark. Maybe he has to actually keep Arya there if he wants to move. But either Catelyn or Arya is in Winterfell as things are being moved around a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Arya would be the one to stay in Winterfell, because I think she'd be the only legitimate Stark that I guess is left. I doubt Catelyn would really count. And even if she did count, like we were going into earlier, I think she's best served by getting her ass over to talk to crazy Lysa and beautiful Robert, whatever.
He's so strong. I just call him Robert the Strong. Catelyn's the best. I shouldn't say best. She's best utilized as a negotiator, even though she's not that good. She should be negotiating with, the Greyjoys and stuff like that. But yeah, so Robb now has control of his seat again in Winterfell. That takes a long time for him to get up there. He's with Arya, and at this point, I I guess you know what we should have done this whole video is this should have been what if Stannis doesn't say Robb's name when he throws it in the fire, because the only reason why Robb's dead is because, Stannis throws that leech with
Right,
his name
true.
on it, right?
True.
So, I mean, maybe he hesitates. He's like, he throws all of them in, like, throws 2 in for Balon or something, and then he's, Joffrey, goes down the whole list, and he's like, not Robb. And then that's the reason why Robb lives.
I put all 3 in for Balon, that piece of shit.
So, I mean, what happens down in King's Landing? So we got to talk about, the Baratheons, Stannis, and then also, the quote-unquote Baratheons of King's Landing, the 2 factions down there, because do you think Lady Olenna kills Joffrey?
I think, yeah. I don't think that plot really changes whatsoever. I know Littlefinger plays a big hand in that too. And like we were talking about before, now that Catelyn and Robb aren't dead, Littlefinger is the part that's strange now, because is he really going to try to pass Sansa off as his daughter and then go to the Vale with her? Like, no, I don't think that's going to happen now, unless he thinks that, like, going over to Catelyn or whatever, like, hey, I saved Sansa, so does that make us cool for me, getting your husband murdered? Like, is that fine? Is that even Stevens? I'm not sure how that works out, but either way, I think Olenna definitely still kills Joffrey, or still wants to at least.
Right. I mean, I don't think there's a better time to kill Joffrey than right now, with Sansa still there, and if Littlefinger is able to coordinate this whole thing with her and still get her out. Yeah, I'm trying to think what Littlefinger's play is right now, because it does make sense that he's, after the war kind of settles down, that he immediately tries to instigate it again. Like, everything seemed kind of pretty settled down. If you want to go by the TV series, season 4, the Starks are presumably dead. There's now the end of the War of the Five Kings in many people's eyes, because no one sees Stannis as a threat to the crown as Robb was, in the Riverlands. So it's almost a presumed victory, but then all of a sudden Joffrey dies, right? And it's like, holy shit. There's still a war going on, though, so I don't know if Littlefinger feels like he needs to instigate something again,
I don't really think that, like, the hot war portion of this would pick up again until after. Well, I guess the Battle of Blackwater is a hot war for sure, but after that point, because I think that still happens too. I think Stannis still recaptures the Stormlands. I think that's because Renly's going to die in the same way, presumably. I don't see why that would change. He's still going to kill Renly, and then I think that he still captures the Stormlands, and then I think he loses at Blackwater in the same way he did prior. And I think that it kind of just takes a reprieve for a while, because now you have Robb, who is now still just as formidable as before, but he's back up in Winterfell. So it's like, does Robb just immediately, bounce off, like mirror force off of Winterfell and then start coming back down? I don't know if that happens, but Littlefinger's play, I don't think he has a move to make right now. Like, what's he going to do? How is he going to instigate anything? The only thing he could do is run off somewhere like he did in the main show, but it's not really, like, he has no advantage. So I think for this purpose, I think maybe we just don't do anything with Littlefinger right now. Like, he could be part of the conspiracy, but what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was he could go the same way as he did in the show. It's just, what's his next move is the question. Because I do see him thinking, hey, I can still get my fingers into the Vale if I just play this right. And if he somehow is able to get Sansa out of King's Landing, that will win him favor with Catelyn, who's still alive right now. So that there is a move there. But is he able to do the same amount of kind of assassination on Lysa Arryn to then take over with his sweet Robin as his ward, kind of, or not his ward, what do you even call him, like his stepson, kind of, right? So I wonder if he's able to make the same moves if Catelyn's alive, but he also is able to use her as, hey, this is your daughter. I got her out of King's Landing. Doesn't that win me favor with the King in the North? And I think it would.
That's the play. That's the play right there.
It is the play, but it's just so confusing because Catelyn is kind of putting the dots together that, Littlefinger lied to me about, the whole dagger thing, because Tyrion and Jaime both told me the same story. Theirs line up and they had no way to coordinate it. And Littlefinger is the one that definitely is not accurate, or at least he's the one that's the one story that's off between the two. So she might have her suspicions, so she might not go right away. But see, you know what? We go down these paths. Maybe we should just take this one step at a time. I think, and let me know what you think, and comment down below what you guys think as well. I think Littlefinger still does the play, and I think he tries to move towards Cat. I think no matter what, he wants to move towards Cat, and this is just enough chaos to stir. And I don't, just sitting and waiting might not do anything for him. But
no, you know what? Okay, this is what I think, actually, now that I feel like I'm thinking straight now. I think Littlefinger would do the same thing, because Lysa is in love with Littlefinger. Let's not forget about that. Like, Lysa is obsessed with Littlefinger, not necessarily in a similar way to Littlefinger being obsessed with Catelyn, but I think it's more like, Littlefinger's got this thing for Catelyn, And the plan is just so good. Like, it worked out so well for him in the series proper of Game of Thrones and whatever, Song of Ice and Fire. So why wouldn't he do it again here, even though Catelyn's probably, wants his ass reamed for orchestrating the death of Ned, essentially, or the betrayal of Ned.
What else she know?
I think whether or not she knows, there's got to be suspicions going on. Not to mention, if he shows up to the Vale and suddenly Lysa dies, that's pretty suspicious as well. But I do think saving Sansa would be his saving grace. I don't think Catelyn's going to execute him for it. Also, I think if Littlefinger goes full manipulation and ends up taking charge of the Vale, either by manipulating Lysa or killing her, either way, if he's in charge of that army and he, tries to impress Catelyn by basically swearing that army to Robb's cause, oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Even if Catelyn is suspicious as hell, no, if he's won over her, he's good.
Yeah, no, I think if he gives Catelyn her daughter back, plus, the men of the Vale to their side, that's enough for her to be like, okay, well, I have my suspicions, but this is such a great gift. We have to take it at this point. And plus, they can hopefully play defense more for the Starks as they kind of regroup up north, right? As they can support some of the Riverland operations down there.
Yeah, that's 100% true. So this is where I would think that the next step would be, or at least the next question, that because there's so many different paths that you can take here. So does Robb, when he's up at Winterfell, taking it back, like I asked before, does he kind of just mirror force bounce back down south, or is he receiving the Raven prior, or deciding on the Raven and then heading north prior to that? Because the reason why I ask that is because I think Stannis' decision on whether or not he goes north might sort of depend on what Robb's doing, or if they even know what Robb's doing, if Robb responds to that, if he's already in Winterfell, Robb's military, and he decides to go north to respond to Jon's call, is Stannis even going to be aware of that? Because in the story, Davos is the one, that's Stannis, we got to go, we got to go up there, man. They need our help so bad. Yeah. And Stannis decides to go just because, maybe it would make him look good for the people. And also Stannis is at heart, an honorable dude. Is there a chance, my ultimate question is there a chance that both Robb and Stannis' army meet at the Wall, both for the same cause to help out the Night's Watch?
In my wet dream, 100%. I want Stannis to go up there because Stannis, in my mind, and in the book, it's pretty clear, that he says, what is the exact line? Maybe I'll find it here in the edit. Maybe I'll have it pulled up. God willing. Don, please pull it up. Basically, he has to save the throne to win the throne. And he has to save Westeros. And he sees the vision that Melisandre shows him of, I think Davos sees it as well, that there's a threat up at the Wall and that this message from, the Night's Watch is real. And we need to go up there and save Westeros from the looming darkness and death coming onto the Wall. So I think Stannis does go up there regardless, goes up the Night's Watch. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to meet with Robb, and then they can negotiate what's going on moving forward. Because I know Stannis is not in the best position, but Robb isn't either, right? If Robb is there and they say, hey, listen, you're no longer king of the North, bend the knee to me, and you will get your revenge on all the Lannisters, but I have to be king, right? And your father wanted me to be king anyways. Jon was warming up to the idea until basically he was elected Lord Commander, having Stannis be king.
So that's the thing up there too. There's two different options you can go with, because I really don't see, if there's any of these two kings among the five kings, Stannis and Robb are not going to be at odds the most. So there's several different ways this could go. And after we answer this question, I think we go back down south for a minute. But I think there's a chance that Robb looks to Stannis and sees the noble act he did, or at least the generous act he did by coming up here to defend people, even with his really reduced army. He knows that Stannis has the rightful claim to the throne. Right. He knows that Stannis just lost the Battle of Blackwater, so he should be regrouping. There's many more productive things he should be doing, but he decided to come up here and help the Night's Watch, which is super important to the North. So I think there's a chance that Robb looks at that, and he also remembers, that his own dad, Ned Stark, who's the most honorable, whatever jerk off dude in the realm, his play was for Stannis to become king because that's the rightful way to go. Yeah. I think there's a chance that Robb puts his hat in the ring for Stannis, even if Stannis will not allow the North to become independent, because I don't think Stannis is going to let the North become independent under his rule.
Yeah, no, I don't think Stannis would allow that either. Well, it just depends how weak Robb is with all of his forces. I mean, the Lannisters and Tyrells have to be, especially with, our base Randall Tarley, have to be moving north. And they have to be pushing to put pressure on the Riverlands right now. And that's a huge force coming up. So it's kind of like they definitely can play defense up in the north, but it's just going to be a matter of time before they march up there. And if winter does come, which it eventually does come, it's going to be like it's going to be a while for them to get up there. But they have too big of a force.
Well, right. I know they're too big of a force. So I think they're going to combine forces no matter what. But do you think? Yes. I don't think it really matters how strong Robb's forces are. Like, don't you think that given all the circumstances, the honor-bound nature of the Starks and all that stuff, I asked you the question, but I do think that Robb would say, like, hey, Stannis, bro, man, I think you should be king. My dad thought so. It's like, your bald head is looking pretty sweet. Like, I think you should be the one, and I accept that you don't think that we should be independent. I trust you as king. We'll just go from there. I think that would happen. Even though my army is way more powerful than yours right now, I think you did the right thing basically at every step of the way here. Obviously, Robb doesn't know about the burning of, assassination attempt, all that stuff. But I think that's what would happen. That's at least my opinion. I know we said we want a lot of death here, but I think that's pretty much so far what would happen.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think also if Robb, imagine if Stannis did throw the leech in the fire and it was supposed to be for Robb as well, and Robb doesn't die, then a little bit, I think, of Stannis is doubting the Red Woman, Melisandre, about all of the prophecies, and maybe he doesn't go and try to sacrifice Edric Storm, and maybe Edric Storm's with him as well as like the proof, because I know when Davos was talking to Lord Manderley, he's like, well, where's your proof? And he's like, well, if I showed you these other people are basically spitting images of Robert Baratheon, you'd see like, okay, that's definitely Baratheon. And then you look at Joffrey and you're like, okay, not, you know what I'm saying? He was basically the evidence for him to rally the troops. But
right.
I think Robb squares himself to Stannis. Stannis has to make some concessions though. I think honestly, what would be awesome for
what?
Littlefinger would play it this way, right? Littlefinger would think like, what if I assassinate Stannis' wife and then Sansa that I bring back to the Starks is able to marry Stannis, and they're able to, unite the two, and then he's going to assassinate Stannis somehow. And then, you know what I'm saying?
After marries Sansa, and then he's now in charge of the whole North and Stannis' army.
He's like one of those, I don't know if you've seen this before, Crusader Kings, where people are like, yeah, I'm going to play as Littlefinger and literally just inherit and kill, and just go through and just be the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms by just, marrying and killing every sort of spouse you have. But no, I'm thinking... I'm going down too far this path here, but yes.
No, I know.
The three unite, and I think they fight the White Walkers at the wall. I think they all unite, and I think you probably could take out the Night King with these three without the dragons. The dragons can't go past the wall. Like, the dragons are not going to go past it. That's a huge mistake that they made in the books or made in the show that contradicts what happens in the books.
Right, or at least that's what we would be led to believe, because there's only instances of dragons refusing to go past the wall prior, so it is possible that maybe those dragons are just retards, and now these ones, here have balls of steel and are willing to go across. So that is possible, but there's plenty of mistakes. And also, I think we should go down the book and the show route real quick, just because, at least up in the north. Maybe I think they do fight the White Walkers at the wall, and how are they getting past with this massive army? Like, there's just no way. I don't care how much, snow cover that they bring with them. Like, what are they going to do? Not to mention, Stannis begins dragon glass mining back on Dragonstone, ASAP. Yeah. And if the entire northern army and everything is here, Stannis is not going to have to waste his time fighting the Boltons, anything like that. They have so many more men they could send down there, get a bunch of dragon glass, bring it up. They also have, at least a small handful of Valyrian steel swords. I don't think the White Walker army is going to be lasting too much. Not to mention Melisandre, her performance against the White Walkers in Game of Thrones was horrible. I think that her potential is way bigger than that. But I think that's generally how it goes. Where do you think Dany factors into this? You mentioned dragons.
That's so late game. I see, because even I don't know where Dany factors in all of this, but even before we get there, Tywin, you can't count Tywin out. Right? He has to be pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to figure out a way in which he's able to flip this into his advantage. Like, who does he call up? Because, the whole Red Wedding is basically him orchestrating it, making it that his offer's so, I guess Robb kind of set it up himself by, going against one of his his sworn oaths. But, Tywin has to be putting pressure on some faction within there, or at least getting... Because I don't know because even if Tywin reaches out to the Greyjoys and hey, would you mind, what if we set up an alliance? They're just going to wipe their ass with it. They're all about the old ways over there now because Balon's dead, and then it's going to be Euron. The King's Moot. I don't think anything changes over there. I think Euron's still wins the King's Moot, and then he's going to go down into Lannisport and grape and pillage all of the Reach.
Oh, I think so too. And then I also, just to put a bow on that real quick, we don't have to talk about it. I think he still sends Victarion over to try to like court Dany for him or whatever, to try to get his little dragon plot going on. And dude, Euron, yeah. I mean, I think Euron is super badass, actually. He's like the one cool character among the Greyjoys, but he's still a disgusting piece of shit. What's up with the tongue obsession? Why would you remove the tongues of your people? What sense does that make on your crew?
He likes it being silent, the silence.
Is that silence, or is that just people all going, That's worse. That's way worse.
That is kind of worse.
How about enunciate a little bit? Like, what are you trying to say? That's all right. Go ahead.
Well, what does Tywin do then? Because I think Joffrey dies. Someone has to be, someone has to pay for this. And do they just blame Sansa? Do they not go after Tyrion because, the threat in the north is still a viable threat? Does it keep Tyrion? Does he not persecute Tyrion for the crimes of killing Joffrey or attempting the killing of Joffrey? I don't know what Tywin does, because the internal kind of cleansing he does of Tyrion is way more acceptable when there's no threat coming down south, right? Stannis in the real storyline, Stannis isn't that large of a threat. He's headed north. The Starks are dead. The Boltons and the Freys are in power in the Riverlands and north. So does Tywin persecute Tyrion for the death of Joffrey? Because I think we agree that Joffrey still dies because Lady Olenna wants Tommen to marry Marjorie instead.
I think that not only does Joffrey die, but I fail to see what events would change to make Tywin, because he doesn't really play a huge part in the persecution of Tyrion. He just kind of sits back and lets it happen, doesn't really care either way. And then, like I said, his own internal cleansing, unless his diet changes, he's still going to be on that shitter like the stroke of midnight when Tyrion walks in there with a crossbow. I don't really know what would change about that event. Like, I think Tywin still dies in the same spot, and I'm not sure what military move he's going to be making in that little in-between time that's going to make a big difference. Like, realistically, what could change to make that happen? I think Tywin still dies.
Okay, so this is my thought, right? Tywin still dies because Oberyn Martell came up there to start asking questions. Just asking questions. Oberyn Martell. Right. And he poisons Tywin, because I think there's a rumor in the books, or a theory in the books, I should say, that Oberyn Martell has been poisoning Tywin slowly, and that's why his body stinks so much at the funeral, too, and why he was upset stomach, diarrhea. So I think Tywin still dies, but I don't know if Tyrion is persecuted for the death of Joffrey. Do they pin it on him? Do you think they do still?
Well, yeah, because I mean, as soon as, what was it, Cersei? I think she thinks it's Stannis at first or whatever, but then she comes to her senses, like, no, there's no way that Stannis is involved. This isn't anything foreign. Well, okay, all I'm saying is, Cersei has an anti-hard on for Tyrion, likes to pinch that little thing till about comes off. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why she would act differently here. Tyrion's still there. They're all basically in the exact same situation and location. The only difference is the world politics going on. You think that's going to change her mind at all? She doesn't see Tyrion as valuable.
So you're saying basically down in King's Landing, the same events play out as is.
I mean, yeah, basically, except for maybe, water cooler talk is a little bit different about what's going on up north. I guess, like I said, the war for them is not even hot right now. Nothing's really happening unless they're trying to march on the Riverlands, because I don't see the Riverlands, making an aggressive move right now without Robb's army or without the Vale or anything. They're just chilling. So, yeah, I think pretty much all stays the same down in, the Crown Lands, pretty much.
Yeah, I think
unless you think differently.
No, I think the Riverlands play defense, mostly. And I just didn't know if Tyrion gets persecuted.
So if the same things basically are happening down in King's Landing, there's one thing I forgot to mention up north, but I guess it kind of comes later anyway. So another factor for this combined now Robb Stannis army is, I'm pretty sure a representative or a concierge or whatever from the Iron Bank of Braavos basically comes and says hey, the Crown hasn't been making their payments at all. And so there's this hint that maybe Stannis and, well, I guess the North now could enter into an agreement with the Iron Bank of Braavos, basically say yeah, Braavos will lend you their forces, or at least combined forces, to basically take out the Lannisters, take out maybe the Tyrells if they're still cooped up there too, just to get their money back. They're trying to make good on their investment. And if that's the case, man, the Braavosi forces plus Stannis's, recuperating army with basically Robb and the entire North at their back, because, you mentioned Stark at the beginning. I don't think it's going to take much to group all the northern houses basically together against the south, maybe excluding the Dreadfort, but whatever. So then basically you have this big army up north, the Riverlands, plus the north, plus Braavos, plus Stannis, against the Reach and the Westerlands, which is basically House Lannister and House Tyrell, which are definitely very powerful and rich houses. That's 100% true. But do you think they stand up to all that? Like, unless that marriage with Marcella, like, really, really stuck for them, and now you get Dorne involved too. That's kind of maybe an even war. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think Dorne still is looking, especially in the books, they're looking way closer to. And it's weird. This whole what if, we're kind of blending the book and the series Game of Thrones together, or the Game of Thrones TV series, right, with the Song of Ice and Fire books, because in the books, I would think that Dorne has no interest in joining the North. They kind of have their own plans with the Targaryens that, the Lannisters definitely, graped to show Robert Baratheon their appreciation for his rebellion. Right. They want Lannister blood, but they also kind of want to go with the Targaryens. But, it's just so hard because they have Marcella. They're not going to just start going open war with the Lannisters. I feel like that would really sour that marriage that I feel like is prospering pretty well down there, right?
But it does. But if it looks like, if from like their standpoint, if it's like, dude, we maybe made a mistake with this marriage, it might be time to wash our hands of this. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if they could take a break from using olive oil to lube up their sand condoms or whatever they do down there, their stink orgies for like 2 seconds, maybe they'd see Stannis and be like, maybe in the end, like Stannis, we can't depend on the Targaryens. Like, we can't depend on Dany or whoever they maybe have wet dreams about siding with 100 years from now. Stannis is the current enemy, and Robb are the current enemies of the Lannisters, who we hate. Maybe they would just side with them. That's super boring of an outcome, but it might happen,
I don't know if they side, but I definitely think that they wait and see. They're just probably going to wait and see, especially if they have stuff going off in Essos of trying to align themselves with Dany. They're not going to invade, but they're definitely not going to support the Lannisters either, right? So I think they're standing back and standing by.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay.
Well, another thing I think we didn't bring up is the whole Bran arc up north. I think that happens the same. He does like the, what would you call it? What would you call this? The deep programming of Bloodraven into Bran's brain.
Oh, yeah, dude. Project Deadweight, right? Like, he just becomes the scourge of the realm, just literally a paperweight. He's literally just a buzzkill. He's like, I can't even think. He's like the guy in like a group of friends to like just straight face a killer joke. Like, everybody else is laughing and he's like, why is it so funny that you heard a chirp in the background when you were talking to him on the phone? It's like, come on, dude, like that. You don't understand why it's funny. But you know what I mean? He's just, I don't even want to go into Bran really, because what's going to change about him? The only thing that's going to change is where he ends up, like at the end of the Game of Thrones timeline, which we have no idea where that's going to be.
I think Bran comes back to the Wall. He's in his like whatever dumb glossy-eyed state. Just like, oh, I'm going to tell you guys things. I'm going to help you out. I think they defeat the Night King up there. I think it's not a big deal. They're up there and they don't need dragons because they have the dragon glass. And they're able to coordinate it because you have Robb. You have competent men up there leading, not some, Targaryen bitch that doesn't know how to lead except for just fire and blood. So I think they're able to take it out. They got the base boys up there taking care of business.
Oh, dude. How awesome would it be? Okay, so everybody knows, too, like there's two looming threats in Westeros. One's the White Walkers, the others. One is Dany, right? And, in the book, do we even know, like, are the others going to arrive at the Wall or whatever in the same sort of time frame as the White Walkers did in the show? Or is it possible in the book that Dany shows up like long before the White Walkers do it? You know what I mean? Like, is that possible? Yeah. I don't think it's set in stone what the timeline is of that.
No, and the only reason why they crossed over was because, the dragon was able to blow down the wall, which I don't think that's how it's going to come down in the books at all. The dragons can't even fly over the wall to begin with, or maybe they can. They just don't really want to. They're reluctantly flying over, I guess, in that one episode of Game of Thrones. But
please don't make me.
They could use the Horn of Winter, I think it's called, right? The blow, and that might cause the fall down. Even if it does fall down, I think our forces here are able to mitigate the damage. I think either Stannis. See, this is where the issue we're having right now, right? We're set up a lot of things, but there's not a lot of big deaths happening up north, right? So we need characters need to start dying off because that's the most realistic way things would be happening.
All right, I was going to say a second ago, the two looming threats, Daenerys is one of them. How great would it be? You want to talk about deaths, dude? They know Dany's a threat. She's got 3 dragons. If only they knew a certain red woman that could summon shadow assassins to go kill people that they want dead.
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
Dany's a woman this time. And who do they have ripe for the burning? Catelyn Stark, the Wicked Witch of the North. Burn her ass and then send a little shadow demon to go over there and kill Dany. And then it rides the dragon back, and then Stannis gets to, control that dragon.
We should write that fanfic of Catelyn burning at the stake for Stannis' glory.
That's right. She screams for so long. It's such a drawn-out death.
No, I don't know where Catelyn dies in all of this, but I think Stannis takes the Iron Throne. That's for my own reasons, my own, selfish, dark dreams I have of Stannis sitting on the Iron Throne. But I do see him going out as Azor Ahai, though, with Lightbringer, taking out the Night King himself. Night King's not in the books, right? It's just the whites, whatever. But I can see Stannis going out as the hero of Westeros, as he truly is, and not this, cringe guy they made him in the TV show for whatever reason, because Dan and Dave hate strong men. Like, yes. Oh, I don't like this guy. He's bald and based. And, I got my hair, and I write for Hollywood. Shut up.
Yeah, shut up, bitch. Yeah, I do. That'd be super cool. Say what you want, whether or not he's Azor Ahai, man. He has a pretty unique sword, and he's got to do something cool with it before he goes out. I could definitely see that happening. And if that happens, listen, if he went down, like with the ship, against the Night King or against like the lead other, or even in that conflict at all, something that led them to victory, then who sits on the Iron Throne if not for him?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. I mean, I guess Shireen marries whoever because they're not sacrificing her, I guess, in this situation.
Nah, I think that's such a dumb plot point.
What? The Shireen burning? The plot point doesn't bother me as long as it's done well. I think that's the biggest thing is as soon as they go off book, they had plot points that... Because imagine if... Okay, I don't want to go down this long road here, but imagine the Red Wedding if it wasn't set up properly enough, or Ned's death, right? You'd be like, this is so stupid. But George is able to set it up, believably enough where you'd go, okay, I can see why he's doing it. I hate this, but understandable. Versus Dan and Dave that just like shove it down your throat and make you smile and give you a thumbs up as they, suffocate you with whatever bad plot points going down.
Yeah, you're gargling. Yeah. Well, what about, this is such a lame thing too, because there's ever people who are like, oh, Gendry in the show, right? Gendry. What if it's Edric Storm? Like, what if Stannis at some point legitimizes Edric Storm, which I could see him doing because it would more effectively convey the whole incest thing, right? Like, this is, not only is this a bastard of Robert Baratheon, this is the son of Robert Baratheon. No, but he wouldn't do that because then that's the heir, right? That's the heir to the throne. So maybe he wouldn't do that. I
think maybe at this point, Rickon is married, or at least a marriage proposal with Rickon and Shireen. They unite their houses through those two. I don't think it goes through in the end. But I think they just do that to like, hey, we're going to unite the realm underneath until he basically bears a male heir.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. And he could just keep on going, plugging until one pops out. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's realistic. What do you think happens? See, now I'm back to this question again. What do you think actually happens with Dany? Because let's say the White Walkers are done. In this hypothetical situation, let's say the White Walkers are taken care of, and now it's just Dany's here. There's no John.
Hold on, is this book or show?
I'd say this is book because in the show, I don't know. You can maybe
now you got Aegon coming over,
Jon
right? In the
Snow.
books.
Oh yeah, with John Connington.
Yeah, they take the Stormlands.
Man, and see, I wish so badly that the show went the book route. Man, it's so ridiculous. So what? See, do you think that's how it would boil down to in the end? Is this Daenerys versus John Connington? Because then remember, or not John Connington, young Griff, Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah.
Because now, if you're really going down that route, we have to like more formally address the Euron Greyjoy thing. Because Victarion went over there with like a decent force to propose to Dany. And if Euron legitimately does have a Valyrian steel armor set, and he legitimately does have a horn that he can use to control dragons, Dany's kind of fucked, right?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely is. But even before that, we have the battle at Old Town, which, I mean, I wish that was happening.
Oh, my God.
In the TV show would be so awesome. Just give us a good adaptation of Old Town. But yeah, what is it? Is it called the Battle of Blood? I think they've kind of shorthand like the Battle of Ice, Battle of Fire, Battle of Blood, Battle of... I'm trying to remember all the battles that is going to be happening in the Winds of Winter or, setting up here. But yeah, I think Euron... Yeah, I don't know. Does Euron go over there and actually, somehow align himself with Dany just to come over here. And at that point, dude, the Lannisters / Tyrells, they're so screwed, dude. They're so screwed.
If that happens,
with the Martells hooking up with potentially Dany, and then Robb coming down after he takes out the White Walkers. Like, it's just, there's so much stuff going on right now.
Well, okay, if I think about this realistically, remember, it's like, what would these characters do if Daenerys gets like a blind marriage proposal from Euron Greyjoy or Victarion Greyjoy? She's going to say no to both of these, and I can't really imagine her being super merciful when one of these like Chad alpha dudes tries to like order her around or whatever. So I don't think that it's going to amount to anything. Maybe it'll be differently when the book comes out, or maybe it'll turn out different when the book comes out, Winds of Winter, and we'll all see. But as far as I think right now, if the events are just Victarion gets sent over to Daenerys in order to get a marriage proposal from Euron, but secretly Victarion's just going to do it for himself, I think she basically just says no. And then maybe at most lays siege to the fleet in order to get her forces across to Westeros. Like, that's the most I could see happening from her. And if she comes over with 3 dragons, just like, the Conqueror did, I hate Aegon the Conqueror because he's just such a cheat code with no personality and no flaws. She's basically going to be the exact same thing. And when it comes to, like, if she conquers these places, if it ends up the same way as the original conquest did, and we basically get to the point where Robb Stark has seen many other kingdoms fall, and him and Stannis up in the north have to say, or maybe Stannis is at King's Landing at this point, I don't know. But if
Stannis might be dead right now too. I don't think, do we officially say Stannis is dead?
Yeah, he might be dead. He could die in the north. He could die when Dany comes over, because I tell you something right now, the Baratheons, the ones that overthrew the Targaryens, if Daenerys comes over and confronts the Baratheons, there's probably not going to be any like mercy there. It's probably going to be an immediate, destruction to all their forces, right?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Dany comes over with dragons, it's almost game over unless you have somehow Qyburn discover this brand new technology of the Scorpion Bolt. Yeah. I mean, we already see this in House of the Dragon right now, that they already have these things mounted up, and that's like 200 years before the events
280
of
or something.
The Game of Thrones. Yeah, but it's longer than 80. It's almost 200.
I said 280, I think, or maybe less than that though. Well, either way. I was going to say this way earlier too, when we first started talking about Dany. If Stannis takes the throne and there's a decent amount of time overlap in between then, he's not Cersei Lannister. He's going to be well aware of Daenerys' doings over there in Meereen with like grown dragons essentially at this point. If these scorpions are in any way public knowledge, he's going to have them mounted on King's Landing. I think that's not unrealistic. The only unrealistic thing about scorpions we've seen is that, like you said, they're in House of the Dragon as well as modern day Game of Thrones, and they're supposed to be passed off as a new invention by Qyburn or like a new rediscovery. That's the only unrealistic part. I think if Stannis is in King's Landing for any extended period, the Scorpions are going to be there and ready for Dany.
Yeah, I think so too. There needs to be more death in our like what if right now. I don't think there's nearly enough. I think Lysa still dies. Littlefinger uses her or that marriage to get the veil, right? So that's one death. I think somehow some of these other characters need to die as well. I know we have the wildlings up north as well. I think they would be siding with Jon. Does Jon still die? Does he get betrayed by men of the Night's Watch, even though they have the north and Stannis' army up there?
Definitely
does he come back, right? Like, there's so many of these like little things that, there's a what if still on them. And also Janos Slynt's up there. Maybe he warns Jon or Robb about Littlefinger if he's, having his, he's like, oh yeah, Littlefinger, he's the one that told me, I'm the one that swore allegiance to him to, backstab your dad, Ned. Maybe he slips that out and that causes more tension up north. I mean, that would make it more interesting, which is probably more George R. R. Martin way of, writing the story. And it's not just like, hey, cool, I shake hands with you, we're in an alliance, we're going to be best friends for the rest of the time. There has to be like internal conflict, because even in King's Landing, we have Mace Tyrell trying to insert his influence. Does Kevin Lannister still die? Kevin Lannister is super awesome and is underserved within the series and is great in the books before he comes to his ultimate demise. So there's just all these like moving pieces. And as we talk about this, because me and you tried to at least get some bullet points out of like, hey, I think these are the first couple steps, and let's just talk about it the rest of the way through. Imagine George R. R. Martin in this situation of how many moving pieces it's going through, and how many because he is a Gardner writer. He just wants to let his characters, go their natural course
and then let them grow. Yeah,
right. And then just like, where's the scene take him? Where would he naturally go with these events around him? And then as soon as he wants to change something, he has to go back and literally go through the whole thing. And like, okay, well, if he makes this different decision, how does that impact the rest of the story?
Right. No, dude, 100%. I mean, even with the whole Robb Stannis thing, we pretty much can determine that they're probably going to be allies. But it's like, what if Stannis really does like continue on this path of like religious fanaticism, you know, and he ends up taking a path that's too extreme, like in Robb's company? Like, what if he burns somebody again in front of people that he shouldn't be burning, or he takes too extreme of a position? And now Robb and Stannis are secretly at each other's throats, you know, like Robb is planning to betray Stannis, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Like, that could all happen too. And then Stannis might not be on the throne, or maybe Robb still ends up dying again. Maybe he's the one that's dead.
Right.
Yeah, see, there's like so many different ways it could go down, man. I don't know. I mean, we got pretty far though. Like with this, what if we got pretty far along in the timeline?
I'd like to know what people think, how they think this would all end, based off of our predictions here. Are kind of like, hey, how this one event would impact the rest of the events within a Game of Thrones. Another video we might be doing, if this one, you know, is well received, we might do a what if Robb Stark was resurrected instead of Catelyn after the Red Wedding, which would change these events. But yeah, I want to know what people think about the way it's set up right now, how things would change, and how this would impact the overall story.
I wish we could have gone more into this too. Like if we could go for like another hour or something, which we can't do because we're both busy as hell. But if we could go for another hour, I think we could nail down a lot of this stuff. But yeah, it's just too much.
Yeah, well, how about we just do a part 2 to this thing? You know, if we have things set up, we'll just rehash it, kind of get everything organized once more, and just kind of get in the end game. Because the end game, a lot of things are coming down. Do the Lannisters or the Tyrells? What do they do when the Targaryen threat hits Storm's End, as well as Dragonstone from Dany and Aegon? And then also with the North potentially coming down, and what does Robb do? Yeah, but I think we got pretty far. I think we did pretty well. I think Stannis still goes down either as the king eventually, or Azor Ahai, which he's the king in all of our hearts and minds.
So for now, just to tie a knot on this video, we have Stannis, Robb, possibly a Braavosi support system. In the north, we have the Iron Islands decaying away under Euron, you know, over in the Iron Islands. We have the Lannisters and the Tyrells really pissing their pants, soaking wet down south because they have such an allegiance against them. We have the Riverlands also supporting Robb and Stannis in the middle. And we have Dany and Aegon Targaryen coming over from Essos at some point. So, yeah.
Oh, and don't forget the Bloodraven hive mind that's potentially going to pull strings now with the northern forces, as well as, you know, Varys over with the Blackfire, you know, maybe he's not Blackfire, but, you know, Aegon. And then also Littlefinger in all of this. Still alive, still pulling strings, behind the scenes, wheeling and dealing. It's a mess.
Well, it's not worse than the mess in my pants, tell you that right now.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and smash that like button.
Or not. We don't care.